ahead and kick this off. In the meantime, weigh in chat to let us know where you're tuning in from. Now, first, before we dive into today's panel discussion, I want everyone to take a deep breath. It is a very wild and crazy time right now. And part of the reason I feel so strongly about coming together online is because so many of us can't come together in person. I am a public speaker for the most part. I travel the country hosting trainings, leading team trainings, diversity and inclusion initiatives, working with companies on their Women's History Month initiatives. I was just in Philadelphia the other week and up in Toronto last week. And I have to tell you, I'm already missing the in-person magic that comes with bringing folks together around shared values. So I'm not going to be on the road for a little while. I am, all my events for the next month and a half have been canceled or postponed for the sake of all of our safety, which is the number one priority. But in the meantime, it is so important for us to come together and bring community together. So if you haven't already, know that beyond being a speaker, I'm also an author of the Bossed Up book, which Melissa has on display there. Thanks, Melissa. Get your copy today if you're looking for a way to grow professionally and personally throughout this uncertain time. It's also available on Audible. If you're an Audible subscriber, I'm a big fan of that platform as well. And I have 2 podcasts a week coming out for the Bossed Up podcast. We're on episode 210, which as of today covers how to prepare in the face of mass disruption. So know that we are here as a community, and I am here at Bossed Up, not only to come together in person, but for the time being when we cannot do that, to come together virtually. That being said, if I can ever be of service to you or your organization in the future, I'm still booking up for the fall right now because this will pass. So keep me in mind if you love what you hear today. I would love to support your team and continue to work together with you. So let's jump into today's topic with these amazing panelists we have today. I'm delighted to have Melissa Nicholson of WorkMuse tuning in from Austin here, Dr. Monica Marcelis Fochtman, who is tuning in on behalf of her organization, Sheldrake Consulting, and KJ Jolimeau coming in from Boston on behalf of her organization, Trips Travel Agency. And the topic of the day is all about work-life balance. So ladies, go ahead and unmute yourselves as my panelists so we can jump right in. Melissa, I want to first start with you. And for folks tuning in, feel free to weigh in with your questions and feedback as we go as well. What are some of the new challenges that we're faced with when it comes to work-life balance when we're all working from home?
Yeah, I think ordinarily in a normal time, it's a difficult thing. It can be a difficult thing to go from working in an office every day to working remotely. I worked in the crazy, insane radio industry for 10 years. It was, in-person meetings, back to back, lots of interactions with coworkers and people, and go. Mm-hmm. And when I started my business, WorkMuse, I went to working in a remote office located in a modular office in our backyard, and it can be really isolating.
Yes.
So ordinarily it can be isolating. So I think some of the challenges that people really face in the beginning, and I job shared, so I worked part-time with a partner, working 3 days a week and then off 4 days a week. And I brought a lot of those lessons with me into my remote working situation. And primarily when you work in a job share, you work this kind of hyper efficient, productive task mastery type of week. And you have a lot of boundaries around when you work and when you don't work. And I think that when you first start working remotely, one of the hardest things is feeling like you're just there by yourself. Doesn't matter if you're in your PJs. and you're used to the water cooler, right? You're
Totally.
used to talking with your coworkers, interacting, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, when you job share, you really get rid of a lot of the water cooler to just hyper focus on your work half the week.
Yeah.
But I still needed that water cooler. And for me, that was the beginning of the day, my elementary community, and it was the drop off and all that kind of stuff and parent chat. We can't do that right now.
Right.
We can't have that. But I think it is very valuable and important to stay connected and find that interaction in that water cooler, whether you are doing it virtually with a Zoom or a FaceTime with a friend or what have you. And I really have been thinking about this a lot as my family's been isolated and self-quarantining for 5 days. And I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think that a couple of things can happen. I think that it's really important to stay connected with a couple of friends that you text in with every morning to see how their work is going, how their day is going. It's just like a mental check-in.
Yes.
And I also think there's some really compelling research from National Geographic's Blue Zones that says that the number one thing that makes people really happy at work, the thing that makes them happiness, is not a great relationship with their manager, is not getting promoted. It's a BFF at work. Yeah. And what I really suggest to everybody is finding that one BFF that you have at your work who also is all of a sudden thrown into working remotely without, much time for setup or figuring out the office itself, that the logistics, how it's going to work from the work perspective, from the management perspective, all that stuff. But have that person and have you be each other's water cooler in the morning before you get your workday started.
I love that. It's such a clear ritual of texting or FaceTiming or calling someone to start your day, and just checking in on someone else and being of service in that way can also feel really good in these uncertain times. KJ, I want to ask you the same question, because I know that through your work and through your entrepreneurial venture, Trips Travel Agency, you spent a good amount of time living abroad, sometimes in places where you don't have built-in networks of community. So how do you, or what experiences have taught you how to stay in touch with community when you don't have community right there?
I would say for me, when it's time to stay in touch community, first of all, because I'm traveling all the time, my family is very big on where you're going, what you're doing, keep in touch with us. And I always tell people, feel free to email me. Feel free to email me, text me, call me. And I think when you're overseas, that's one of the things people are just kind of touchy, because they're like, I don't know what kind of phone plan you have. Right. I don't want to charge you. I don't want you to be charged $100 for this phone call. So I gave my entire family a lesson, and my friends as well, before I left the country, saying, here's how to use WhatsApp. Here's how to do a video WhatsApp. Here's how to text me, and go ahead and text me, not an issue. I may not be able to call you immediately, but I can, when I get to another connection, I can also call you at that point in time. And it's just a constant communication. And they will see it on my Facebook as well, to say, okay, that's she's okay, she's safe. I always let them know what my itinerary is. Even my friend in Colombia, when I travel to, I give him a full itinerary on the day I'm coming. And if I don't show up at that time, that is the time to worry, essentially, Yeah. So there's always constant communication. Yeah. And I think it's just, and especially when you have, I know I have older parents that are not computer savvy at all. Yeah. It's very important that you are the one teaching them these skills and having them practice it before you leave. That way everybody feels a little comfortable. And it also helps you as well, because you need that home, that homey feeling you can't get right then and there when you're in a foreign country. Yeah. But at the same time, you feel connected. You don't feel like you're lost on your own. You feel connected back to your roots and your home as well. So I think that's
I love the word grounded. Sometimes
communication.
Totally. I think what you're saying about feeling connected, sometimes I think of checking in with family as grounding me, right? Bringing that energy down and just centering myself. And drawing lessons from your experience abroad, it sounds like a great way for all of us right now to apply those lessons to our lives, is to think critically about what mediums you prefer, and be assertive about telling people, here's how I'd like to be communicated with. And sometimes, like we're hearing in chat from Caitlin, who is an introvert who has a very extroverted manager, sometimes those mediums might differ. And so
I have an extroverted child.
So, oh my goodness. I think being extroverted myself, you know, it's important for us to be mindful about not dumping that on our introverted team members who might not want to be there for your water cooler chat. So being mindful and considerate is key. Dr. Monica, I want to ask you to chime in here. What are some challenges you think folks are facing working from home right now?
Challenges. Well, I think working from home is, for me personally, I love it. I've been doing it for 3 years since I took my business full time. But so I think it's challenging in normal times, given these highly intense, unprecedented times. It's doubly challenging.
True.
So all that to say is to give yourself a lot of latitude and a lot of grace, because it really is minute to minute, day to day. Challenges, I think someone mentioned balance, and I think even the topic today is work-life balance. And I would suggest actually that balance is going to look incredibly different for everyone, right? And that balance isn't the scale of, like, if you think of, you know, the legal scale, right? She's got the blindfolds and she's got the scales and they're perfectly balanced.
Yeah.
That's just not realistic in regular times. So in these even more challenging times, it's not possible for it to be this. And so to give yourself the latitude and the grace to let that go, and for your balance to maybe one day it's this and the next day it's this, and that it's going to look different, and that's okay. And as long as it's working for you and for your unit, whoever is in that unit, whether it be coworkers, family, friends, that balance really, it's just not possible. And so instead to work for fit or flex or, you know, whatever feels good to you. And to Melissa's point, I just wanted to chime in quick too about Melissa's point about the morning social water cooler. That's so important too when you're starting to get into this work from home, remote work routine, because none of us knows how long this is going to last. And routine, even though it can feel really binding to some people, really restrictive, routine is actually our friend in this situation. And part of that morning routine should be getting up at the same time, making your bed, getting dressed, brushing your teeth, having breakfast, having your morning coffee as if you were going to your office. Doing all of those things is still really, really important because that sets the tone for the rest of the day.
Totally. Melissa, did you want to jump in?
I just wanted to suggest something too, because this is, as Dr. Monica was saying, this is such a different time. And I am so glad you said to give yourself grace. I know that there are a lot of parents, because I'm a parent, so a lot of my friends on Facebook and my community members are parents and they're dealing with things. Parents of different age children right now, like someone might have infants and toddlers. Their challenges are very different of how they're going to work and how they're going to delegate in their family and help their children and keep them, like, when are they going to work?
Right.
And someone who has early elementary age kids, that's very different from upper elementary age to middle school and high school, who soon hopefully will have some direction from the schools and they'll be able to do their lessons online. But all that is going to look very different. So with our coworkers, I think one of the most important things is, to what KJ was saying, the way that she is very transparent and open and clear about her itinerary and what she's doing. I think when you're working within a team with your business still at your company, but remotely, I think checking in, more frequent check-ins with your manager, your team, and letting people know what your schedule is so that you guys can protect your own work-life boundaries, because it is very true that, like, during this time, someone who has infants or toddlers might be doing a lot of work at 10 p.m.
Right.
And one of the hardest things anyway, when people are working remotely, and thank God, it's great that we're all getting to work remotely, but one of the biggest challenges can be in normal life, not this life, but normal life, that people have a perceived perk and they overwork, so they extend themselves much more than 40 hours.
Right.
It's really important that you're really delegating, like, okay, there's a nap time happening here. I work for 2 hours. There's a thing happening there, but then let your team know, because you also want to be very cognizant of their mental well-being right now and not overriding their boundaries by sending an email at midnight if they're working till 7. If they've got older kids in the house and their kids can be in another room doing stuff and they're actually fitting their 4 hours in at this other time. So I just think those things are important.
Yeah. And I want to chime in here on 2 fronts. One, when giving yourself grace, that means it's okay to let go of guilt right now. Yes. We are going to be experiencing more role overload than usual because all of our roles are happening in the same place right now.
Yeah.
So let go of the guilt, and only you can do that for yourself, or talking it out with a loved one, right? Only you can lower your own expectations for yourself with kindness and give yourself a break for a moment.
I think beyond important. The kindness I think is real important because as someone who's day 5 in with my 4 household members, and everybody is stepping it up in their responsibilities. My kids are middle school age, so they're stepping it up in their personal responsibilities of making their bed every day now. Yeah. And and my husband is also stepping in and stepping up. You're going to feel yourself get a little tension stuff in your household. It just is. And leading with kindness, and when you feel yourself feel a little stressed, step back into your eyes a little.
Yeah. And someone in the chat, go ahead, KJ.
One of the things I want to hit on that Melissa mentioned is overload. And one of the things that I realized when I first started working from home is, one, you have this idea to believe that you have all the time in the world. You can always do the work at a certain time. And it's not true, because you're like, if you do everything throughout the day, you just won't have time for anything else. Right. So I always say, one, set your schedule where like the Melissa said, if you have 2 hours, the kids are working, you have your 2 hours to work. That's a great thing to put in your schedule, saying, I have 2 hours to do this. Take a look at your calendar in the morning. I use my calendars religiously. I know what's happening in the morning. And for me as well, sometimes when I'm working from home, I do need that interaction. And normally when we're in a normal setting, I would go to a cafe and just feel the buzz around me, right? I'm not talking to anyone, but I'm still working, but I feel the buzz, and you feel some type of community connection. Or I would go to a workplace, like one of those, I can't think of the word right now.
Co-working space.
Co-working space, You feel the energy of everybody working in their individual offices, and you see people passing by you. Whereas I'm home right now in Boston, and there's only me. Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny about that is that a lot of people differ on this. I'm the kind of person who likes to hear external stimulation to create focus. And there are lots of people shaking their head like Dr. Monica right now who are like, I need quiet to create focus. If you are like KJ and I, go to Spotify, play Cafe Productivity. They have a whole playlist that creates that sense of being in a cafe, including little murmurings of conversation.
Oh my goodness.
Really?
And you can create that for yourself. Yeah.
We're living in a really cool time, I have to say, because if this happened 5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Holy heck. I mean, really, my 11-year-old, who's the sick one, right? My 11-year-old hopped on a 12-player D&D game with all his friends from his classroom and was occupied for 2 hours the other day. They played Dungeons and Dragons.
While he's quarantined.
And he got to feel normal.
Yeah, that's so key. Monica, did you want to jump in here?
Oh, yeah, lots of stuff. But the whole about the boundary and honoring what works for you. So for me personally, I'm an introvert. And so I can't have the external noise. And so I go to the same place every day. I'm very, very fortunate that I have a home office. I have a corner office with windows.
Wow.
But the boundary or the rule that we've established is door closed, not available. Door open, available. So if I have this door open, then I can be interrupted. I can talk to whomever. And someone in the chat mentioned introvert, extrovert, introvert and son introvert, husband introvert. And then we have another son who's an extrovert.
Oh my God.
And he, the first couple of days were great. He's struggling.
Yeah.
And so today, I'm certified on Myers-Briggs and have been since, gosh, a long time, like 20 years. So I'm aware of that and was able to say to him, hey, bud, what is an extroverted thing that you would like to do together this afternoon after my call? So, you know, again, putting the boundary on my time and my space, but also allowing him to, you know, get the need for interaction and movement, right? Because extroverts are really energized by that external world.
Yeah, I'm getting like extrovert energy right now talking to all of you.
Yeah,
Having
sure.
150 people on right now in chat is giving me all the extrovert vibes. So you're bringing me to my next question. I'm so glad you started to mention this, which is how can we right now, especially if we don't have a she shed office in the backyard or a corner office in the house, how can we start creating space for focused intervals of work? We've talked a bit about the work-life challenge and how we feel pulled in different directions, but what can we do? Practical tips for creating focused space. Who wants to jump in? Yeah, KJ.
I'll start this first. Because I actually work, when I'm at home, I don't have a personal office or anything. I work from the living room, essentially. It's the most central in the house. And when there's somebody in the room or in the house, they're moving about. But they already know between the mornings, the times of 8 to 6 p.m.
Yeah.
It is hyper-focused work time for me. I may get up and move because I think it's very important to move and not just sit in one space all the time for like another hour. Then they know it's kind of like a break time, or I have set times for lunch. And I also keep like, you know, a set meal that I would eat for lunch or snacks or whatnot. So I'm not cooking. I think that's one of the other things people just like, during that 8 to 6, they see you at home. They feel like you can do so many other things. You can answer the mail for them. You can do their issues. And I'm like, no, this is simply my time to work. And my phones are going to be answered. And whatever I'm doing, that's my time to work. I can talk to you during my break time, or I can like talk to you after my break, after my hour, my work day has ended. And that has worked very well. And establish and focus. And we have to also remember, like, I also do not have any children. I'm not married. So like my parents are the people that think, oh, she's here.
Yeah.
Do things for us, right? And I'm like, no, I need to do this. This is totally a different realm for them, where they've never seen people work from home. They've always gone out to work. So they're like, what is this? So
yeah, they're like, program my TV remote for me.
Exactly. And it's very important to establish those boundaries really early on.
Yes.
Because then you make it clear and everybody understands from that point in time, essentially. And they respect you at that point in time, respect your boundaries as well at the time.
Yeah, and yes, so true. And I would say, so yes, I'm super fortunate that I have a space. If you don't have one that's built in, you have to create it. So whether that's you claiming a corner of something, a corner of a family room, a kitchen, a dining room, a living room, a basement, closet, whatever, right? It's, you have to claim that space, and then you have to build it. So that means you bring in your laptop, your computer, your phones, all of your chargers, your pens, right? And you're recreating an office in whatever that little micro space is. And I would encourage people to go to that space every day. I think it's super tempting, especially like a laptop, right? Oh, I'll work on my couch today.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I'll work at the dining room table. Right. And then, you know, this afternoon I'll work in front of the TV and have friends on in the background, right?
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely understand that temptation, but you won't get nearly as much done. So it's carving out a physical space and going to that same physical space as much as possible.
Totally. Not your bed.
No, not your bed.
Do not make it your bed, because even if your bed is comfy and all those kind of things, and you're like, I'm comfortable on my bed, you sleep in your bed, and it is going to mess with your sleep if you start. So before I worked in my modular office, it became the kid place. And there were a few months after I left my job where I was working from the house, and I was doing a lot of work from my couch and my bed, and do not do that.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say, because I was thinking about this question a lot too, is on making sure that I do a thing, and a lot of people, there's like a 10-minute rule, but if you take breaks during the day, so you're working and you focus on your one task at a time, I'm doing this one thing, then when I'm done with that one thing, and if I give myself about an hour, then I take a 5 to 10 minute brain break is what my daughter calls it. I take a 5 to 10 minute brain break. I might be doing yoga with Adrian in the living room, available on YouTube, by the way.
I did that this morning.
She lives in my neighborhood.
I love, wow.
She's awesome. My brand designer is really good friends with her. But anyway, so you might take a little break and do like a quick 10-minute yoga. Then you go to the next task that you have. Work for that hour, that 40 minutes to hour. Take your break. I take 2 big breaks a day, which are about 30 to 45 minutes, where I walk my dog, Howard the Great. He's a little Jack Russell mix. I walk Howard. I come back. He gets a morning and an afternoon. That will really allow you to work so much more productively. And then the other thing I was really thinking about with the family and with having different schedules, way different than you would have if you had childcare or kid care or adult kid care or whatever, husband care, is sitting down with your family to figure out what schedule you think is going to work. Everybody's got to get hands on deck, and that means little kids to big kids have to be delegated some responsibility and some things and what they're going to be doing at different times in the day too, as well as your husband or your spouse or your partner, or if you're alone, more important with the kids. So I think that being what Dr. Monica said about having a lot of grace and giving yourself a lot of grace during this period, there are a lot of freaking out moms that are worried about, are they going to learn? Are they going to do this? Are they going to get this? How do I schedule them? How do I hyper schedule them? I want you to give that, you know what, up. Yeah. Give it up, because you're going to try some things. I want you to enter a design thinking mindset. You're going to be ideating through this. You're going to be trying some things within your family, and you're going to be flexible to change the plan if that's not working. You're going to there's going to be some days that everybody's going to need to sit in their PJs. It's okay.
I think that is so important. Oh, go ahead.
I think what you said, Melissa, is very good. It's being flexible. Because I can tell you, when my dad was sick, I was basically traveling different countries. I was also keeping a schedule of doctors, making sure he saw his appointments, telling him what to do. And that was crazy. But you have to realize, like, even though I had my schedule for the day, I also had to go, like, I usually set my reminders 2 days ahead of time, so I can see, okay, what do we need to change as the situation changes, essentially. And just to be flexible. I may get to that day and it's like, nothing's working out.
Yeah.
Well, at least I can be flexible about the situation. And give yourself a little bit of grace and time to breathe. Because I always say, if you're not good, then no one else around you will be good, essentially.
Exactly.
And also, I would say, all of that. I would say 2 things. Is to also don't underestimate your own children. And this can really be, I totally agree with Melissa, like schedules and academics and staying on track. I let that go. Just that's what's working for us personally. I have a 14-year-old who's going into high school, hopefully, maybe in the fall, and a 12-year-old who's in 6th grade. Yeah. And that's not something that would have been realistic for them or for me. Yeah. So that they are doing, no screens until noon. But that's about as far as we have gotten so far. Yeah. But the flip side of that is also to not underestimate them. We have we've learned cribbage, we've learnd Dominion. We put shamrocks on our windows this morning for a neighborhood shamrock scavenger hunt. Our 12-year-old made dinner the other night. Wow. So this can also be an opportunity for them to shine and to get new skills and experience, and also to build resilience. Totally. And whether it's little kids, big kids, your parents, your coworkers, we are all watching each other and how we respond and learning resilience and learning, like, this is what you do in a crisis. This is how you can respond in a very bizarre situation.
Yeah. I want to ask about communicating with your workplace too. I feel like we've talked a lot about setting boundaries at home, which is great. And it's a big part of this. But another challenge that we are all facing right now is setting clear expectations with our team. One thing we say a lot at Bossed Up, because we have the kind of team dynamic where the three of us can be very transparent with one another, is to have patience with yourself. You know, I, as a leader, said yesterday, I just got back from 2 hours of fear-induced paralysis. You know, I just went on Slack and was like, sorry guys, I haven't done anything for 2 hours because I made the mistake of watching the news all afternoon. And, you know, how do we communicate authentically, but also professionally with teams that might not have that level of candor available to them? So, you know, lots of folks are, especially women, I think, worried about being penalized for the role overload that we face at work, or at home rather. And so when we're working from home, especially if you have children, how do you show your boss and team that you're still with it without being on 24/7 and beating yourself up for not being on 24/7? Like, how do we set those expectations in a professional manner with our managers?
I think what's also interesting about this time period is that everybody is home.
Yeah.
So fathers and mothers are home. And I think there are a lot of silver linings in this period of time we're going through. First off, remote work is going to be widespread after this. Like, it's just gonna happen. Co-parenting is going to become much more, people are really going to lean into this. People are going to have to they are going to be more open and transparent about what they need to do their most efficient work with their managers. And it's up to middle management to come in and do the check-in with the team, check in individually with each person and find out what are their needs? What's their situation at home, like the office situation, but also like kid situation, whatever it is. Check in with their employees and say, what do you need emotionally, but also from me as a boss to do your work effectively and to ensure that I'm respecting your boundaries and when you need to work. And managers are going to have to find themselves being a lot more flexible, thinking outside of the box, and doing things very differently than what they have thought they were supposed to do this entire time. And sometimes it's hard for people who are in a manager mindset to come back and be open to changing everything that they
I think yes, everything, yes. Everything Melissa just said. I would also say that this is the time to over communicate. And even if it feels like too much, I don't mean frequency, I mean content of what's in your communication, right? So again, building that into your schedule, whether you're an early bird or a night owl, but building into, okay, kind of a running tally, like this is what I did today. And then just saying very polite, very matter of fact, right? Without defensiveness, because I would say probably 85-90% of us are in this boat together, right? And so to just say, like, this is what I worked on today, this is the result, this is my follow-up plan for the next day.
A lot of companies are worried about culture right now, and they haven't been to 100% remote work before, you know, and they're really worried about that in-person culture that they have. And I have a friend who's a tech writer, and she's working at a company where all of a sudden, for the first time in her life, not because of this, but in the last several months, has been working 100% remote, and a lot of the company does. They're in San Francisco. She said one of the things that they do, and I thought this was a great suggestion for companies, is they have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday virtual lunchroom. It's not work related. It's a Zoom virtual lunchroom where they're all together virtually, and it's their water cooler time to be with one another and just chit chat. How's it going? You know, all that kind of stuff.
That's great. I love that. KJ?
I would say two things. I think it's very important for the managers to come in and set the tone of communication.
Right.
Because now that everybody is now doing everything from email and Slack, you know, the communication and the stress is at a different level. And you may not, you may say something off the cuff that you don't really mean it.
Yeah.
That right now that he would just need to say, okay, maybe the communication is going to be a less formal now that we're
yes.
or we're using Slack, or we're just trying to figure everything out. Like, you know, you're trying to set up your computer, you're trying to set up the family. You know, you may just say, hey, yeah, I'll get back to you. But somebody else may take it as like, oh, she's just brushing me off or whatnot. So I think it's time for like managers to come and say, okay, hey, this is the way we're going to communicate. We understand everybody's under a different stress level, and we're okay with that. You know, don't take things too personal. A lot of stuff are coming through email, and I just had that this week. Don't
infer tone, right?
Exactly.
Because you're going to get yourselves and everyone else in trouble. Like to just read. And I struggle with that. I'm a huge feeler, and so I read into everything. And so I see tone where there isn't tone, and I'm like, oh, what do they mean by that? And yeah, this is not the time to do that. This is the time to actually not to have no affect, right? But to really just be like, to just not infer and not assume. Like,
and if at all possible, grab the phone. You know, I had that same situation happen to me this week. We were going back and forth, and eventually she had the idea, just give a call and see what's going on. And we cleared it up. Something that we did 10 emails back and forth, cleared up in 5 minutes. And it's like, oh, we should call each other.
That's great advice.
I wonder what you think about that, Dr. Monica, as an introvert, because I am constantly saying, just throw a Zoom link at them, hop on a call, hop on a video chat now. And I think my introverted team is like, why? I can send an email. It's so much easier and less intense. And I just wonder from an introverted standpoint, like, how do you feel about that?
Okay. So in a normal situation, I would, as an introvert and as someone who knows type, so in a normal situation, I would say the onus would have been on you to honor my introversion.
Right.
Especially if you are in the manager role. However, given these very unusual times, I think, myself included, it's time for the introverts to step up a tiny bit and be more willing to do a phone or a Skype or a Zoom or a virtual communication, with the caveat, though, that the extroverts on the team are acknowledging that. Right. And then giving time and space for the introvert to recharge
and recover. After. Take a recovery lap after.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and I'm honored to have been a panelist on this. But yeah, I'm gonna need a nap after, because this is this is an extroverted activity.
Totally.
So yeah, it's that give and take and that grace. Like So
I also find that people feel the need that they need permission to call now. Whereas back in the day, people just called you. People feel, can I text you? Like they text you, can I call you? And I think that people need to set the expectation. Yeah, you can call me. This is a major form of communication, just like email. And if I can't speak to you right now, I'll tell you that.
Just, call me.
Or I won't answer.
Yeah.
Right?
I had someone text me last Friday after I'd emailed saying, just call me. Try to catch me. Call me next Friday. I'm free. Call me. Catch me if you can. And then they texted and said, hey, are you free in the following 4 different time slots? Yeah. And
that person was probably an introvert, Emily.
They were trying to be, but I was like, I was kind of trying to do them a little favor, and things were hitting the fan. So I was like, I can't handle the text, can I call you? Like, you either call me or you don't. And I know that makes me sound a little harsh, but like, I will answer the call. I am the kind of person who doesn't screen my calls, and give it a whirl. And if you can't talk right now, I'll let you know, So, Melissa, one last word on this, and then I got to move on.
I was just going to say there's another aspect to this too, in that a lot of people are using technology that they are not familiar with. Yeah. And people are at different levels of comfortable. So from the management perspective, it's important to check in with your team and have some tutorials on how to use the communication devices. And, maybe they didn't use certain things in their business before.
Yeah.
And just make sure everybody is getting comfortable with how they're going to be working from home.
Totally. And we've got a great follow-up question here in the chat from Chelsea. What tech do you rely on right now? I'll share first. Zoom should sponsor this series because I am such a fanatic fan of Zoom.
Their stock went up $10 the other day.
As it should. I should have invested in them a long time ago because they are crushing it. They're so good with their customer service. I'm a big fan, but we also rely heavily on Slack to keep our inboxes from being cluttered with everything. What are some of the tools that you recommend for communicating while working remotely?
I use mostly WhatsApp for communicating remotely. That's really the only thing I really use.
Great.
Zoom as well. Oh, Google Hangouts is also good if somebody has like the Gmail. So that really works very well as well. So
awesome.
And I use Asana for project management stuff.
Okay.
In addition to both.
Love me some Asana.
Yeah. So Zoom for me, also another vote for Zoom. And then with friends, actually, we're using GroupMe.
Love it. Awesome. And lots of great recommendations coming in from our participants right now as well. From Starleaf to Blue Jeans to Microsoft Teams, all kinds of great recommendations to check out. Last question for you before we'll open things up to participants' questions, which start thinking of your questions now and throw them in chat for consideration. One top recommendation from each of you for how to manage the inevitable experience of overwhelm. We are all feeling high levels of stress and anxiety. In fact, it's going to be a topic on another panel discussion live later this week through Bossed Up. But what is one strategy you use to manage overwhelm?
I can go with this one. When I am overwhelmed, there's a couple of things I do. First, when I could get outside, I would do exercise. I learned how to swim this year, so I can add it into my exercise routine. So that's one of the ways I was able to bring down my stress levels. And right now I just manage it to just walk around my garden. Another thing is to build in time to just honestly just veg out. Like there are some Saturdays that I was just absolutely overwhelmed. I just put in my Netflix, I vegged out for the entire day, and I just relaxed a bit and brought down my stress levels. I think that's very important that, you know, like I would know my eyes are twitching. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. Honestly.
Totally.
It was like, okay, this is going to be a bigger issue down the road. So manage it now so you can have an answer for it later on down the road. And then just build in things that make you happy.
Love it.
Like I would build in networking events, or I would build in, you know, events I go into on the weekends or whatnot. So or the massages, masseuse, that's like my favorite, like the spa day, it's like my favorite thing. So I also build that in. It's like my
I'm really missing that with social distancing right now.
Yeah,
so I feel
exactly. Yeah.
Monica, how about you?
Yeah. So a couple of things is to limit social media. You know, I know, yes, this is the best time to be doing this because we're all so connected, but not all of the information that's out there is good. And so for me personally, what has helped my overwhelm is to put a boundary on my social media consumption.
Love that.
Alcohol. I'm a huge red wine girl, and, you know, take the edge off, unwind. I've put a cap on that too, just because it could very easily, you know, every night have it. So for me personally, I've put some boundaries on that.
It can also really mess with your sleep quality.
Yes, yes, it absolutely does. And I'm old, so it gives me reflux, which is horrible. And then the other thing is a breathing technique that I learned that I've actually posted already on Facebook and LinkedIn, but it's you very gently touch each pad of your fingers together. And so you breathe in for 10 and out for 10. Cool. And then in for 10, out for 10.
What a great concrete strategy. I love that. Melissa, how about you?
I think for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, having a morning ritual, whatever your morning ritual is, and stay to it. And we all feel a little like, suffocated in our homes right now. But your morning ritual can be getting out and walking in the neighborhood, running, swimming, doing those things early. Something that's going to allow you to.
Yes.
And I think in this different time we're in a little bit, keeping it simple, simple, and making sure this is something that's happened in our household. Well, it's spring break week here. So we've told the kids, like, we're we're not going to have a rigid schedule this week is your week because we're not going to the woods anymore. We're not going to where we were going.
Yeah.
So, but I think, shoot, Trey, I lost my train of
It's
thought.
okay.
But
keeping it simple, I think is so key.
Yeah, I think with the kids and everything, I think that just making sure that you are taking a breather and a break and getting your rest and your sleep, and then having somewhat of a routine.
Totally.
Sleep is one of the main important things. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Our days, we've noticed, have wafted away. So we'll be like something that ordinarily would seem like, oh, in 45 minutes, this should have taken 45 minutes, 2.5 hours later, we're like, what happened?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think
sleep and keeping it simple.
Absolutely. Yes. And the one thing I would just underscore from what everyone said here is to try to keep a routine and to try to get outside at least once a day. Nature is the one thing that is not canceled right now. And obviously we got to keep our distance from other people, but even in a city, if you can get outside,
hiking,
unless you're in San Francisco, which is under batten down the hatches warning right now, try to get outside. Right? Try to see some sun, try to have some wind on your face at least once a day. It makes a world of a difference. We have so many great tips and strategies weighing in here in chat. Not too many questions that I'm seeing here other than one that came up here from Hannah. What are tips for self-accountability? How can you hold yourself accountable to staying on task, whether it's personal or professional tasks at hand? I'd love to hear the panel's thoughts on that.
I would say for me, what I do to keep myself accountable is that I have goals that I need to meet each month. That's one thing. I also do, I find like when, like Melissa was saying, time just walks away.
Yeah.
You're working on something. I have gone to now using my, my clock and just saying, okay, Google, 30 minutes on the clock.
Yeah.
Just focus on this. This needs to be done. And you find that you are so much more.
Oh, Google just responded.
I activated. You find that you are so much more in tune to what you're doing and focused. And then you're like, okay, I did it within 30 minutes. Something, even if you were at work, something that would take you 30 minutes. Now at home, like you have all this time. It's taking you an hour and a half. So definitely like put yourself on that schedule. Definitely set some goals for you and definitely focus, like hyper that work.
And your goals might change. So like set them weekly, daily, monthly. Yeah, absolutely. Monica, quick tip from you and Melissa.
Oh, totally. I was going to say the timer. Also finding an accountability partner. So whether that's a partner, a spouse, a coworker, a friend, say, hey, my goal for today is this. And then to check in with each other either at the end of the day, the end of the week, month, whatever the boundary you've set on it.
Love it.
Also, someone mentioned vegging out. I am all for that. I wrote down an entire list of movies that I want to watch. But to even put boundaries on that too, because like, the whole binging, right? You could waste Saturday and Sunday instead of just Saturday, right? Or half of Sunday. So to put boundaries on that too, like I'm going to watch 2 movies today. Tomorrow I'm going to watch 2 movies.
Yeah. Otherwise the guilt is real, right? Like the guilt hangover is so much more pronounced. So
the guilt hangover.
Giving yourself permission to say, guess what? Mama's going to watch 2 movies today and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. And that way, when you're done with your 2 movies, might feel like a lot, but you've already proactively given yourself permission and you don't feel that guilt hangover afterward.
Yes. Amen.
Melissa.
Just like your 2 things that, you're going to do, that you're going to set your what you do every day that brings you some health and wellness. 3, writing down 3 things that you want to accomplish for that day work-wise. Just write down 3.
Yes.
So 2 things you do every day to bring you health and wellness. Beginning of the day, when you start your work day, write down those 3 things you want to accomplish. When you take your work for an hour to an hour and a half and take your brain breaks in between, reset, go to the next task. And if you do focus on one thing at one time,
I love that so much. I think we should incorporate that into our huddle, our morning huddle at Bossed Up. So Ellie and Kirby, let's talk about that at our morning huddle tomorrow. I want to thank you all so much for being here. Don't leave just yet to our panelists and our participants, because I've got some very special opportunities I want to make you aware of. But first, I just want to say a heartfelt, deep thank you to our panelists for, on such short notice, coming together to share your time, talents, and expertise, connect with these women on LinkedIn, find their websites, learn more about their businesses. You know, this is a very strange and frankly scary time in our globe's history, but it does not need to stagnate your career. It does not need to hold you hostage to fear. Right? What we can all do during this time is work on what I'm calling our career resiliency. A big part of how we build resilient careers in the face of uncertainty is about connecting with others and improving not only our networks, but expanding our capacity, expanding our skill sets, which is why here at Bossed Up, we are committed to continuing to offer high caliber, free online panels all week long. Tomorrow we'll be tackling how to manage your money in times of crisis. Then we're talking through stress management best practices on Thursday. And on Friday, specifically for managers, how to be the best manager you can be with a all of a sudden very remote team. We're taking recommendations and requests for next week's panels. And I actually already had on the schedule a series of interactive online trainings focused on what women managers need to succeed and really need to lead and build their career resiliency to take your career to the next level and make sure you're not backsliding right now. So I will email you links to all of those upcoming free opportunities, and you can just email me with your workshop suggestions or put it right here in chat. My entire team, Ellie and Kirby, are here asking you for your feedback right now. I also want to make clear that business as usual will continue at Bossed Up. We will come out of this. Our signature weekend-long training program, Bossed Up Bootcamp, is coming up in July here in Denver. We've pushed the date back just as of this morning. DC in September, and San Diego next January. And I want to give you a special opportunity to join us at a discounted rate for Bossed Up Bootcamp because you've taken the time to join us here today. Bossed Up Bootcamp features a bunch of trainers, not just me, but women just like these incredible panelists you've met today that help women who are on the rise really learn to advocate for the careers that we want, to really take your career and your leadership and management skills to the next level. This is some of what you'll learn if you join us at Bossed Up Bootcamp. It's a weekend-long training. It's really fun, very interactive. It's intimate. It's not a huge mega conference. We're talking about highly interactive workshop-style training programs with 30 people approximately maximum. So we're coming to these 3 cities in the next year, and I would love to see you there. This is 100% something you can get your organization to sponsor you for as well. I know times are a little weird right now, but I want to plant the seed and let you know that we're here to help you make the case to your supervisor as to why they would benefit from you becoming a better leader, a better communicator, a better manager, someone who can better balance all that we talked about today, grow your network of women leaders across industries, across the country, and really leave with a clear action plan for how you're going to take your life and career to the next level. So if you would like to learn more, head to bossedup.org/bootcamp, and you can actually register for 30% off your registration to Bossed Up Bootcamp for any of the 3 bootcamps I mentioned by using the code WFH, aka work from home, for 30% off anytime in the next 30 days. Thank you so much for joining us. Here at Bossed Up, I am here to continue bringing folks together. If we can't do it in person, let's do it virtually. But keep in mind that we are an organization that really believes in helping women craft happy, healthy, and sustainable career paths, and that has not changed. We will get through this. And thank you so much to everybody.